are joined now by the dynamic duo, Kyle Crooks and one DB. What's going on, fellas?
Wow. I forgot until last night that Damon had played that intro for us that I was singing on the radio. Unfortunate for everybody involved. And no, but we had a great dinner last night. I'm sure we'll get into all this.
Where'd you go?
JD Hoyt's. So
Okay.
this was a place that was Greg's favorite place here in Minnesota. Damon set up the reservation. Shout out to Damon. He got the lift ready to go on time. He got the reservation for us ready to go. Ben had the same server that he had the last time he was here, and she remembered him, and it was a weird interaction between those two. But I'll tell you what, Damon swung and missed the last time, at least for his meal last week at Chef Tony's. I'm sure he talked about that on the show. But Damon, he'll be talking about that dinner he had last night for years to come.
It was Casey. I feel like I just saw you, man. I recognize your surroundings too. We must be in the same place.
We are.
Dinner was fantastic. I felt bad for Kyle because, Rico, I told you he won the award for the best meal last week. This week, I felt like Ben may have let him astray a little bit. We this thick cut pork chop. It looks spectacular, but it was a little much for me too. My meal was incredible. Although I will say this, Casey, lobster risotto 1, DB 0.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
Oh, man, it was incredible going in. I'm about 7 pounds down going out. That was about 315 to 440 this morning, so we're good. It was well worth it.
That's good to know. That's fantastic.
Well, I asked Ben because you kind of just picked at it. I asked Ben if it got him, and he said it wasn't that bad, but there was a mini homicide about 6:30 for him, so we're good.
DB, speaking of seafood, so I get a call yesterday while I'm at lunch with Rico and Kenny.
Oh, geez.
And I get dude, it's so much worse for me than it is for you.
It's weird.
So I get a phone call from DB, and he's like, "Hey, man," and I've sort of gotten used to these phone calls, so I'm just like, "All right, it is what it is." He goes, "Hey, I've got somebody delivering about 30 pounds of seafood, and Jay's not going to be there for about 3 more hours. Any chance you can go to my house and just put it in the freezer for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm right down the street. Not a big deal. I got you." So Rico's with me, and so we roll up to DB's house, and there's a package on the front step, and so we grab the package, put it in the freezer.
Well, hold on. We look at the package, and I look at him and I said, "This is seafood?" And he goes, "That's what DB said." I go, "You said it's on dry ice?" He goes, "That's what DB said." I go, "I don't think so."
But trying to be a good friend, I grabbed the package, I put it in the freezer, we closed the door, and we're like, "All right, I guess we're gonna go."
We're sitting in the car, and I'm just like, I don't think that was it. I got to look for it. This guy must have hit it somewhere. That wasn't it.
We got back in the car, and we're like, that didn't seem like seafood. And so we get out of the car. We're looking around. Is there any other packages? I go around back. I go into your backyard. So I'm like, maybe put it around back so it didn't get.
You nice backyard.
Hey, do you like that yard? Is it not immaculate?
That's a nice yard.
And there was a cooler back there. So I'm looking. I go, okay, maybe there's we got a cooler situation. It wasn't it. There was just ice and drinks in there. And I was like, all right, I guess DB stays ready. Cool. But
I get kicked out a ton.
So we go back into the freezer, and I pull the package out. I was like, all right, I feel bad, but I'm going to open it to make sure it's the fish, right?
I didn't open it. He opened it.
I did open it. And I told DB right away. I was like, hey, man, I opened. It's we had put headphones in the freezer, yep. Kyle. We had put somebody had ordered headphones from Amazon, and we had just put that thing in the freezer, no questions asked. And then it didn't occur to us till later. It's like, that wasn't 30 pounds of anything.
I was like, I'm not as strong as I used to be, but that was really light.
He's like, it wasn't even cold. And I was like, I don't know, maybe that's how dry ice works.
Yeah, they don't put headphones in dry ice, DB, anymore. They do that, I think, right?
I don't know. When you're fixing mine, is that about how they feel?
Oh my goodness.
And so I call him, I go, hey, DB, it was an Amazon package. There's no fish here, man. And he's like, oh, I just thought they delivered something. So he calls me like an hour later. We get the fish in the freezer, but you were very, very close to having warm fish on your porch and cold headphones in your freezer.
That's how it works. Kyle, I told him before we get ready to preview Minnesota about the hotspot incident, because as everybody's kind of getting used to Kyle's voice and they love the delivery. He got me last week when I thought my hotspot should work. Right? I'm like, Kyle, well, go ahead, Kyle. You can tell the story better than I did. I know you just gave me the subtle head shake, and you're like, I can't believe the state hangs on this dude's every word. He's not very smart. I know you were thinking that.
Well, it was one of those moments where DB's fumbling through Wi-Fi and whatever. This is it's an occurrence every time we get on a plane or anywhere. It's the Wi-Fi. There's always some sort of issue with Damon's Wi-Fi, right? So he's got his hotspot, and we have the in-plane Wi-Fi that we use as well, because when you get 30,000 feet, that's the only thing that's going to work. So I mentioned to him that, like, hey, this isn't working. Do you want to get on the plane Wi-Fi? And he's like, shouldn't this work? And I'm like, no. It's like astronauts don't have Wi-Fi through AT&T. We have to use. That's why everybody has to slum it and go on the plane Wi-Fi. So we had that conversation. It's all good. Look, we all have our moments. I have my moments, and I don't think anything different of Damon. I still think Damon is a genius. He's a man with he knows about so many different things. I asked him yesterday, as he talks baseball, hockey, this, that, and the other. I said, when do you have time for all this stuff? So he's a man that has a lot of knowledge of a lot of different things. It's just he was a little crossed up on what spots really do.
Technology isn't one of those.
Yeah,
that's a blind spot.
Not really. I wouldn't say that's his forte. I will say I figured out how he watches everything, Kyle. It's because I'm sure, as you've noticed, he doesn't sleep. So that frees up a lot of time for him to watch Pac-12 rowing, as we found out, is a hobby of his. So
Kyle is well aware that my YouTube library is built to be watched after Zoe goes to bed. He got a full understanding of that last night.
But he's watching full series of Netflix stuff along with all the sports stuff.
I don't know how he does that. I don't.
I'm like, how are you doing? How much time is in a day for you, DB? And I guess he just doesn't sleep.
26 hours.
I have 3 days in my one day. I'm winning.
Let's get to Nebraska and Minnesota. Obviously, you guys traveled up there with the team. How are you feeling about the temperament of where this team's at right now?
Yeah, I think it's business as usual, although it's hard to feel that's the case with everything with Coach Rhule and everything that's come out this week about Penn State and all those things. But it seems like after what Coach Rhule said yesterday on McAfee, it seems like maybe we can put some of those things to rest. And, I think what was telling yesterday about what he said, he said, the way I communicate with my team, and I'm sure Damon knows this through Caleb and just knowing Coach Rhule, is that he's very forthcoming and he's very truthful about what the situation is. So I'm sure that he's had conversations with the team about, hey, this is what this situation is, and this is what the situation is going to be, and we're focused on Minnesota, and let's get after it. And you look at it, just doing the research on it, and this being my first year and sort of parachuting in, it's been a house of horrors, man. Not just for the broadcast back in 2023 when nothing worked, as I found out, but just overall. I mean, this has been a tough program to beat, and if you're going to knock them off, this is the year to do it. Look, it's interesting in the year of NIL and rev share, how many young quarterbacks that are in the Big Ten that we're talking about. So this is what, DB, this is 3 games. And I guess if you want to throw Childs in that mix, but, 4 games in the Big Ten play, you've played 3 young quarterbacks, right, guys? So it's just interesting the way that you look at it. And Drake Lindsay is somebody who, he has a big, massive arm. He wasn't highly recruited coming out, but he's vulnerable to make mistakes. And it's interesting to look at this Minnesota team. They do not run the ball effectively. Classic PJ Fleck teams. I'm sure you guys have talked about it all week. looking at the Big Ten numbers. They average 44 yards a game on the ground in Big Ten play. And they have a really good running back in Darius Taylor. Granted, he's been injured and in and out of the lineup, and he was back last week. He had 14 carries, just 32 yards. He was under 2.5 per carry last week. They've completely, it seems like, abandoned the run. With that, they've had a lot of issues up front. Both lines of scrimmage. I think this is a game, guys. DB, maybe you have a different opinion, where they could really win this game in the trenches. Offensive line, they have struggles. Minnesota defensive line, they have issues stopping the run. I mean, Purdue was able to run the ball on them. You saw the discrepancy in the numbers in the box score last week. So they should be able to get after the quarterback tonight, Nebraska. They should be able to run the ball effectively in Emmett Johnson's homecoming. And if Dillon doesn't turn the ball over and you're not -3 in the turnover margin, you should be in a good spot in this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think the trenches is kind of the key. If you guys, if there's a unit I'm probably paying attention to, it's probably Nebraska's defensive line. I think they could make some hay with the kind of the guard center combo that Minnesota is rolling out there. And if they want to establish any sort of dominance and see if Coach Butler is really a prophet, right? When he said earlier this week, I think they're going to run it at us. I mean, why wouldn't you? I'd try. So I think the D-line is the group to watch. And then the other one is along those lines, you got to get Lindsey to the ground. When you get bodies around him, get him down to the ground. The other thing is Nebraska's got to win in the secondary against Minnesota's wide receivers. I think this game for me is all about Nebraska defensively versus Minnesota's offense than it is Nebraska's offense versus Minnesota's defense. I think Nebraska's offense is going to kind of be what it is. They're figuring out a little bit of that run game. They've gotten into some power run game now. I said Monday that I think Nebraska gets a punt return, so I think they can win special teams. This one tonight for me is Nebraska's defense against Minnesota's offense.
So as we look at that, I'm glad you brought up the wide receiver core for Minnesota there, because that's a place where I'm not sure I've been super impressed with their ability to get separation. I do think Drake Lindsey's got some talent, but I don't know how open his receivers are getting either. Is that one where you think that Nebraska might just say, hey, let's kind of scrap some of that zone stuff that we were running last week? We've got more of a stationary quarterback that we don't maybe have to keep an eye on the same way we have Childs and Washington and Underwood and Sorsby, and we can kind of just let our guys run with the receivers and just trust them to cover in man.
What do you think, AC? I mean, you've got a good feel for seeing those guys this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those games that they're going to be a little bit more aggressive in being in man and getting after Drake Lindsey. I think I'll be interested to see, DB, like you said, what Butler does, the amount of numbers that he throws at the quarterback in a game like this. I look at it, the depth of his attempts, right? So Lindsey hasn't been a big play, throw the ball downfield guy. So he's about 5.8 yards attempt. That's the second shortest in the Big Ten. So that tells me, okay, there's a lot of intermediate routes. And I think Darius Taylor, the running back last week, he had 11 targets coming out of the backfield. So they're going to utilize the flats in that intermediate game. So that's going to force some guys to come up and have to make some tackles. But I think this week, and Butler, like you said, mentioned it, we have to play. I think we played a little bit too much zone, as he said, against Maryland. So I think the lesson of let's trust those guys out on an island. Sierra Wright, Andrew Marshall, Donovan Jones, they've all had great seasons so far. I think that's going to be the case, and I think we might see more numbers sent towards the quarterback this week and a little bit more aggressive of a defensive game plan.
You guys can hear why I like and Suave. You guys, Ravi, you know my personality, right? Like, you can tell Casey's a football guy, and there are these little things that we'll talk about off air, with what Maryland was doing. And I was explaining, I said, hey, that little crossing route, that little delayed shallow drag, that's always going to be there if Maryland's patient enough. Nebraska's playing zone. And we're kind of walking through, breaks on why what's happening is happening. And so the breakdown, as you can tell, Kyle's just ill prepared, right? 5.8 yards per pass. It's going to play some part.
I sound like a nerd, but
listen. It is. There's wheelhouse, and then there's getting the chance to work with you. So I I like it, and I actually think, the running back targets out of the passing game to Minnesota and Nebraska rallying to tackle is a quiet, super important part to this game because they will listen. Feme, I think it's pronounced Schleboy. Is that right, KC? You're like the
boy.
Yeah, it's not my boy, it's your boy.
I thought it was like, he's your boy.
He's your boy.
Listen, those backs out in space are hard to get to the ground. 7 breaks a ton of tackles. So, KC mentioned the 11 targets to Taylor last week. Getting those running backs to the ground in space as part of that little edge run game that Minnesota uses them, I actually think that may be the game within the game and how Nebraska rallies to that. Will they play more dime? Will they play more base? They got to get those backs to the ground in space on those little swing routes.
And this is the first time, too, I hate to jump in, that I think the defense doesn't necessarily have to worry too much about the design quarterback run game this week. I don't think we thought we'd see that from Malik Washington, and then lo and behold, they had they had plays ready for him to go in terms of design quarterback run game. That's been a massive struggle at times for Nebraska defensively, along with the outside zone run game, which is Minnesota's kind of bread and butter when they can get the run game going. But that's something that I don't think's in the back of the mind of Nebraska this week is having to worry about Drake Lindsey in that designed quarterback run game.
So you brought something up there, DB, when you're talking about Nebraska rallying to the ball and getting those guys to the ground. And I'm wondering what you guys have seen, because it seems like that's been really hit and miss for Nebraska this year in terms of when they're getting a lot of hats around the football. Sometimes they do an okay job with it. Sometimes it feels like they're left in a lot of one-on-one situations. How can Nebraska get more consistent with getting more hats around the football so that, hey, if a guy does miss a tackle, he's got his buddies right there to clean it up for him?
Well, I think KC brought up the first real tangible coaching point. Without the threat of the run game from the quarterback spot, you don't really get a free safety because Nebraska doesn't play with like a free. Mm-hmm. But you do get another pair of eyes that can rally and run. You can also do it on the second level too, because you in essence don't really have to use a spy. So the short answer to that is, without the threat of the quarterback run game and a guy getting loose on you in the pocket, it frees you up on the second and third level to go hunt. So if you can man up outside the numbers, then your second and third level, your +1 guys defensively get a chance to go run and hit. So I think without having, and we'll see. I mean, Casey, how long did it take? Second play, third play in College Park, where I said, so much for the design quarterback run game. Like, it was actually 2 design quarterback runs. So, Minnesota has a dry erase board and a marker too. So maybe they'll adjust with Lindsey. I just don't see that happening. But without right now the threat of the quarterback run game, Nebraska will be able to rally and run a little bit better.
We saw some bad angles last week, right, DB?
Oh, yeah.
From the secondary, and that's got to be better. A lot of that, I mean, how much of that gets cleaned up during the season? How much of that is just a quick conversation? Look, you have to just take better angles and form tackling and all those things. All the fundamentals come into play. I remember talking to Terry Braden a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned the word fundamentals probably 100 times. So sometimes it just comes down to that and better angles. But we saw some bad routes to some tackles last week.
Yeah.
We're talking about Nebraska's defense and Minnesota's offense, but I want to kind of flip the script in Nebraska's offense versus Minnesota's defense. The Minnesota defense that has missed a ton of tackles this year, and a Nebraska offense that, if they break a tackle, when they break a tackle, they're going a long ways, leading the Big Ten in yards after the catch for the wide receivers. But I want to focus mostly on Dillon, kind of recovering-ish from the Maryland game, those 3 interceptions. How do you guys see him kind of calming himself down, especially with all the drama surrounding Rhule? And he seemed pretty confident when he was up at the presser talking about Rhule and talking about himself. But how do you see him kind of bouncing back from that one and kind of keeping himself calm, but also, getting the blood in the eyes?
I think DB and guys, we saw that in game last week, right? He throws the 3 picks, throws the pick 6, puts him down in the second half. And, I saw this stat This is the first time since 2022 last week that they won after trailing going into the fourth quarter, which is pretty crazy of a stat. So that's the first time in the Rhule era that they've won trailing going into the final quarter. But I think we saw it, those two 80-yard drives. I mean, that tells me everything you need to know about Dylan as a quarterback, as a person. The fact that, look, he could be incredibly frustrated, and at times we've seen him at the sideline. I think the Michigan State game when things were not going the way he wanted. I mean, he was, even Coach Rhule mentioned in his press conference, he was barking back at the fans who were booing, and I think we saw the evolution the next week of learning from his mistakes, of the frustration on the sideline. When you're a leader, you can't physically show some of that body language that maybe you could at other positions. But the way that he was able to man the offense, he had some really great throws. I'm thinking of the throw to Luke Lindenmeyer. Well, that was a great catch. It was a tremendous catch. It was a great throw rolling out. Even the touchdown to Dane Key, the game deciding touchdown. He put it in a place where only Dane can make the one-handed catch. But a couple holding penalties on one of the scoring drives in the fourth quarter, and you're playing behind the sticks, and he's able to keep this offense moving forward and hit Dane Key down the field a couple times, and he's had a rapport with these receivers. And the throw on the marquee, right, guys, is him falling down over his own feet and still finding a way to lob the ball down the left sideline and find Isaiah Hunter. So it seems like for a true sophomore, and this goes back to him having so much playing time a year ago as a freshman, but he has a next play mentality, at least that's been birthed here after, at least during that Maryland game and what we saw in that fourth quarter. So incredibly impressed by him. And this is a Minnesota defense that's really opportunistic. They have 10 takeaways this year. They have, I think, 6 interceptions, 3 defensive touchdowns. If you put the ball out there, just like Maryland, they're going to catch it and they're going to take it the other way. So they're going to make things happen. And have a good pass rusher in Anthony Smith too. So they might be on his heels. So he just got to, take what's there. And, I like what I saw from him in that fourth quarter last week.
Yeah, Casey can expound on this, but I think because this is something like the fan base can't really see, and obviously, and Nebraska's learned how to travel, and their business approach and efficiency in which we move and get things done. We're not even we're barely off the plane yesterday, and we're getting messages about, the rooms and keys and what's next for the guys. And we're thinking, well, are they in communication with the hotel in the air? Is it
it's a hotspot? They got a hotspot. They're using a tech.
Yes. Damn that whole satellite thing, Casey. I wish you would do your delivery. You're like, well, there's this thing called satellites, but anyway, Nebraska's business-like approach in terms of how they're doing this. I've seen this in the Coach Rhule era. It is so much better. You guys remember 2 years ago when he said, we don't even know how to travel yet. Mm-hmm. But this year he says, hey, we're pretty good at traveling, right? Just the little tweaks and efficiencies to really make this a business trip. Kyle, we're setting up last week at College Park, and we saw him out in the parking lot at the hotel, and then at the field, and then the actual walkthrough. Like the amount of time they spend with each other and moving as one, I think is critical in terms of telling the tale how they're now playing together as a unit and not wavering through these 4 quarters.
DB, I just keep sitting here and I can't get over the idea of Emmett Johnson having $180 almost last week, going back home, and then the holes that I saw Devin Mockabee running through last week for Purdue. I can't get it out of my head that this is just going to be an enormous Emmett Johnson game. Like, it seems too simple, but I can't get past it.
Who was your pick to click, Casey?
It was Emmett.
Yeah. So I was going to add, so I will defer to you because I thought it was, you feel like you've been around him a ton. He can handle the emotions of coming back home because it's not always easy to channel that, but you picked him early. And like our group text, it would have been easy to go with a receiver. Why did you pick him?
Well, I just think, like you said, going back to Purdue last week and seeing what Emmett is coming off of and the emotion of it. This could go in either way. This is an overwhelming thing, family and friends in the stadium. I think they're doing a walkthrough at his high school today as well. So there's the emotion and nostalgia of that. I just think this is a game that if Dana's looking at it and he scripts those plays, I think it's going to be a heavy dosage, at least in that. We're going to see in that first series how Dana scripts this thing out. And I think it's going to be a heavy dosage of Emmett Johnson. And if I'm looking, if history is a predictor of what we're going to see in the future, the way that Purdue ran down their throats, there's no reason that Nebraska doesn't come into this game. And this isn't a heavy load here for Emmett Johnson, where there's every once in a while we see an Isaiah Mosier or Mekhi Nelson. But this is going to be one of those 30-plus, I think, touch games in the pass game and in the run game for Emmett Johnson. I don't see it any other way.
We saw how they treated Ramir last year at the bowl game too, guys, right? Where don't think that the staff isn't aware of what's happening. And I don't know what the little scuttlebutt was on social media where we got tagged, where one of the former Minnesota guys was like, grow up, about practicing at the high school. But I don't know if you feel this, Kyle, but just quietly, man, just the back and forth between the whole Minnesota-Nebraska landscape. I think Nebraska is super dialed, and they come across as pretty edgy. I don't know how you would compare this trip to Maryland because it is so efficient, but they seem to be a lot less action and traction in the lobby. I noticed you came and went in a hurry last night, so good on you. But they seem to be a little more dialed being back here in Minneapolis.
Yes, this is the House of Horrors. I think that's how I'm going to label it on the air tonight. This is another one of those, checklist games. Now you have a number in front of your name again, which we know in recent memory for Nebraska. Once they get ranked, things don't go well. You got off to
You're wearing whites.
You're wearing the all whites, right? You're off to a 5-1 start. You're at this spot last year. You lost 4 in a row. You've lost 5 in a row to Minnesota. This would tell me a lot. Now, Minnesota is what they are on paper, but they play well against Nebraska. These are all the things that year 3 Matt Rhule. Can we turn the page? Can we turn the momentum? Well, here are more things. You're ranked. You're 5-1. You have expectation. Friday night, nation's watching. This has more of an opportunity. If you put your foot on the gas pedal tonight, guys, and you blow out Minnesota in front of a national audience, I think the narrative maybe changes a little bit more when people say, oh, Nebraska's a little bit more for real than we thought. Because AP voters, they're not watching every single Nebraska game. They just look at Nebraska, they see the logo, and they say, oh, that's just Nebraska. They'll get off to a good start, and they'll just choke it away. Well, this is an opportunity in front of a national audience with an opportunity to move up in the AP poll to really put your foot on the pedal. We'll see.
Isn't it crazy, you guys, how we talk about the checklist, and we mentioned Dylan getting over the hump, and Nebraska's on the road in the House of Horrors, as Kyle said, in the Fighting Whites. Like, you think Coach Rhule doesn't embrace this tomfoolery that we've kind of built in our
I like how
he's running into the burning building again, saying, "Don't worry, guys, we got this."
I like how he just snuck it in there on Monday. Everybody's asking about Penn State and everything. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, we're in all white against Minnesota.
I'm actually going to wear white tonight, guys. Casey, don't make fun of me. I'm afraid to wear it out in public, but I think I'm going to go with white tonight too. So
okay.
We got a lot of boxes we can check off.
Kyle, I tried to tell him, and I'm going to make you uncomfortable, I'm sure here. I tried to tell him, when you have skin tone like me, Rico, and DB, the white looks great.
Oh, look. No, Pretty Boy knows exactly what you're talking about. Ask the waitress what she said to him last night. Casey has no problems with the whole.
Well, she said all 3 of us have face for TV.
Oh, that's nice of you.
Yeah. Well, she was working the tip. We gave her a nice tip last night. So outstanding service. JD Hoyt's the owner came over, by the way. Yeah. And it was great. And we had a few Nebraska fans who bought us a round of drinks, too. Of course, they knew Damon. They watched this show. I think that was the big reason.
Yeah, the guy was in Minnesota. He's like, I watch you guys, listen to you guys every day. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Team Reposado.
And here I am with my water with lemon.
I don't want to make you feel bad over that, too, Kyle. I did feel bad.
It's not like a no alcohol thing either. It's just I like to a night before a game. I like to keep the voice. It's just water, lemon, maybe some Propel, some Gatorade. Nothing more than that.
Well, when you have less than a $30 alcohol bill, we probably were pretty responsible. But most of that is because Kyle has 17 waters. He's good.
Either that or somebody took very good care of you.
No, I wish. I wish. Not the case. I have expensive taste.
All right, so we're as we'll let you guys go here. How do you feel, DB, Casey? I don't need a score prediction or anything. How are you feeling about the game tonight?
Oh, I'm feeling good, but this is optimistic me who's seen 6 games and you've won 5 of them, right? I haven't lived through 2023 Minnesota with how kind of anxiety inducing and just how much that makes your skin crawl when you think back to that game. But on paper, games aren't played on paper. I feel good. I think this is a big night for Emmett. I think it's a big night for Dylan. I think defensively you have the opportunity to get after the quarterback and shut down the run game. We said we'd shut down Maryland's run game last week. Didn't necessarily do that. So this is one of those games. Don't let Darius Taylor get going, man, because if he gets going and he can find some of the success he's had in the past, and that means a little bit of trouble. But I feel good.
If you waited, you get the best number. I think it's currently sitting at 7. I like Nebraska. I'll take them somewhere around 28-20.
Listen, I know I don't get to do a click to pick, but I'm going to give you mine anyway. Keona Davis going to tear up the interior of that offensive line.
If that D-line is good, it will be a great night for Nebraska.
You talk to people around Minnesota, and their guard situation is not the best right now. That interior offensive line is not where they want it to be. So,
a lot of Nebraska fans up there?
Seems like it. It definitely seems like it. But they're supposed to get 50K tonight, so we'll see how many of them are. Are they wearing maroon or are they wearing red? I'm just glad we all know where we're going and we're going together.
All righty, boys. Have a good call. Let's enjoy the game tonight, and we will talk to you later. Appreciate your time.
All right.
You got it.